On this week's NESN Patriots Podcast, we will discuss whether it's time to panic after New England's second loss of the season, and we will preview the team's upcoming matchup against the 8-4 Kansas City Chiefs. Hello and welcome to this week's NESN Patriots Podcast. I am Doug Kyed, joined as always by Zack Cox. Zack, how are you doing on this fine December afternoon?
I am doing very well, Doug. How are you?
Doing well. It's a little chilly outside. A bunch of snow dumped down on us. We did not get stranded in Houston, however, so our week is already off to a better start than a lot of our colleagues here on the Patriots beat.
Yeah, we had a relatively seamless trip home. It was more seamless than I was expecting, I'll say that. We did end up having to sit on the tarmac at Logan Airport for about an hour and a half after we landed, which I still don't understand. How do you not have enough gates open for these planes? I mean, it's midnight. You can open up a couple more gates to let some people through. But other than that, It was much better than some of our other friends who ended up having to stay in Houston for an extra day or stay in Atlanta for an extra day or just spend about 18 hours on planes. So we lucked out in that department.
We did get to watch, actually, from the plane. We were on Delta. Shout out to Delta. A lot of the Seahawks-Vikings game. I feel like I'm usually pretty distracted if a game is on, other than a Patriots game, of course, by my daughter or, being on the internet or whatever. But being on a plane without the internet and watching the Seahawks-Vikings game, it might have been like the closest I've watched a non-Patriots game all season on that little TV that's, on the seat in front of you there.
It was kind of nice, yeah. My plan was to hopefully get some work done on that flight, but the Delta Wi-Fi, shout out Delta again, was not particularly strong, so I ended up spending most of the time watching that Monday Night Football game. Exciting game. There's been some good games out in the NFC this season.
It's interesting, but we're going to get to the fact that the Patriots lost the Houston Texans, and this ties into it. I think that the Patriots just have much higher expectations every single season. They go 12-4 seemingly every year. They won 11-5 last year, still won the Super Bowl, however.
And that was a major deal that they only won 11
games.
Right.
And so I think that because expectations are so high for this team, all of their issues really do get pretty magnified, and perhaps more magnified than they should be. I mean, Russell Wilson didn't play the greatest game of his life in that game against the Vikings. And I actually do follow a decent amount of Seahawks Twitter, and I didn't really see anyone complaining after the game that the offense wasn't high-powered enough or that Russell Wilson didn't throw for enough yards or whatever it was. I mean, he had a good game, but I just think that a lot of teams and a lot of fan bases are pleased when their team wins, and that's just not really all that needs to happen here in New England for fans to actually be happy and pleased with their team.
Yeah, the style of victory, I think, around here matters a lot more to a lot of other fan bases, just because the regular season to the Patriots and even the divisional round at this point almost seems like the preseason to the actual games. It basically isn't until the AFC Championship game that these games really, or that fans kind of get into the mindset of, as long as they win, that's cool. Like at every other stage, it's always just kind of a preparation for the next step. I remember it was a big discussion a couple years ago when they played the Titans in the divisional round to talk about how there wasn't a lot of juice surrounding that game. I think that was the term that was used. Some people took offense to that, but when you follow a team that has been so successful for so long, I can see why it gets a little hard to get kind of overly excited or overly optimistic about some regular season games. I do, on the other hand, think that a lot of Patriots fans take this way too far and just end up finding excuses and reasons to bash their own team,
or just to be miserable.
Basically, they find things to be angry about. And now, obviously, we're going to talk about it probably for the next half hour about the fact that this Patriots team does have some serious problems right now. But it's when you do play in this environment, all of those flaws are just so much more magnified. I mean, if the Patriots won a game 37-30, as the Seahawks did the other night, there would be a lot of talk about, is this Patriots defense actually as good as people think it is? And that would be kind of the main storyline for the entire week. So, yeah, definitely higher expectations around New England for sure, and that kind of I think that takes away from some people's enjoyment of the games.
I'm staring at it right now, and I don't want to forget to have this conversation later in the podcast. So I'll have it now before we even get into the fact that the Patriots lost to the Texans. We're just going to keep teasing that for the rest of the podcast.
I'm sure they don't really want to hear about that anymore.
Exactly. The Ravens are playing the Bills this week. And I think people have tweeted at me asking, which team Patriots fans should root for, because it's a win-win/lose-lose situation in this game where if the Ravens win, then they will continue being the number one seed in the AFC and have that tiebreaker over the Patriots since the Ravens beat the Patriots early in the season. And if that happens, and the Patriots so if the Ravens lose, the Patriots have a better shot for the number one seed in the playoffs. If the Bills win, then the Patriots would possibly lose their footing for that AFC East. But I'm explaining this terribly. I've wrapped my mind into a pretzel right now. But my greater point is that Patriots fans should cheer for the Bills, because there's much more at stake for the Ravens to lose, because the Patriots could get that number one seed. I still don't really see the Patriots losing the AFC East. It would take a decent amount for that to happen. The Bills are 9-3. If the Patriots lost this weekend to the Chiefs, they would also be 9-3. But the Patriots would have the tiebreaker since they beat the Bills. And the Patriots are playing the Bills, in week 16?
Week 16, yep.
So all the Patriots would have to do at that point is to beat the Bills to continue to be AFC East champions. They do not control their own destiny for that number one seed in the AFC, and they do control their own destiny for that AFC East. So long story short, that game is in Buffalo, and Patriots fans should 100% be cheering for the home team in that game, because that would be the much better scenario than the Ravens just continuing to win and the Patriots eventually having to go to Baltimore, potentially in the AFC Championship game or in the divisional round or whatever, to have to play them.
Totally agree. Just to distill what you were saying
a little
bit earlier there,
yes.
The Ravens now control their own destiny in the AFC. For the Patriots to get the number one seed, they need to lose one fewer game than the Ravens over the rest of the season. If the Ravens win out, it doesn't matter what the Patriots do.
Right.
If the Patriots win 4 games and the Ravens win 3, or the Patriots win 3 and the Ravens win 2, then the Patriots would be in that number one seed, which I think, based on the way that the Patriots played in Baltimore and based on the way that Baltimore is playing everybody else, I think that is the number one priority right now, would be for the Patriots to do everything in their power to get that game at home. Because even though the Ravens have been good both at home and away, obviously much easier to beat a team like that in your own building. And I still, even though the Bills are playing well, if the Bills beat the Ravens this week, maybe they are a legitimate threat. But I still think that there is a very, very low chance that the Bills will be able to overtake the Patriots in the AFC East, especially with they got to play the Ravens, they got to play the Steelers, they got to play the Patriots, and then they have a gimme against the Jets at the end.
The Bills would basically have to win this game, which is at home for them, which it's possible, I guess. I don't know what the line is. But then they would also probably have to beat the Patriots in Gillette Stadium in Week 16. That's a point that I did want to make, is that game in Week 16 is at Gillette. The Patriots have already beat the Bills in Buffalo. So
the Bills have never beaten Tom Brady at Gillette Stadium in a game that Tom Brady started and finished.
And while this Bills team is good, they're certainly not incredible. So,
At least it's going to be fun, though. When's the last time we had a late-season Patriots-Bills game that was actually interesting?
True. And this Ravens-Bills game is at 1 o'clock, so the Patriots fans will have a good game to watch before the Patriots take on the Chiefs at 4:25. I think it might finally be time to actually talk about the Patriots' Week 13 game against
almost at the 10-minute mark.
The Houston Texans. That game was in Houston. We both were there for that. Patriots offense looked inept. Maybe that's too strong. Inept for about the first 2.5 quarters of that game, before they finally caught fire there at the end of the third quarter and put together 3 touchdown scoring drives. But they only scored 3 points up until that midway pointer, or up until the third quarter.
Their first touchdown was 11 seconds left in the third quarter.
Yeah, and that drive started, I guess, around midway through the third quarter.
Yep.
But not the greatest performance by the Patriots offense. if you just looked at the stat sheet, you wouldn't know that, though, because Tom Brady threw for over 300 yards. He had 3 touchdowns and an interception. James White had a pretty good game on the ground, 14 carries, 79 yards. Sony Michel looked pretty good in his limited opportunities, 10 carries for 45 yards. Edelman had another great game, 6 catches, 160 yards and a touchdown. James White was even better through the air, 8 catches, 98 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jakobi Meyers actually also had a pretty good game. But none of that really happened until late in the game, other than those. Sony Michel looked pretty good at the beginning there. And at least for the final drive, the Texans defense was really in kind of a prevent defense. And the 2 drives before that, it took the Patriots a decent chunk of time to get down the field. They did get down the field, and Julian Edelman made the point that the Patriots did finish strong, so that's a good sign. But, I mean, overall, Patriots defense didn't come up when it mattered, and the Patriots offense really sputtered for the first 3 quarters of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can start with the offense. The fact that the biggest thing that stood out in this game to me is that teams that have a quality game plan, and I think Romeo Crennel's defensive game plan in this game was very good until his team sort of started the bus a little bit too early there at the end, is to take away Julian Edelman, take away James White. They need a third guy, or preferably a third and a fourth guy, to be able to contribute when those 2 players are shut down, as Edelman and White were for much of the night. As you mentioned, even though both of them came away with strong stat lines, and James White actually had his most productive game of the entire season. His basically everything across the board except for his catch total was a season high, including his snaps. He played 78% of snaps in this game,
Crazy.
which was far more than he's played in any other game. But for long stretches of this game, basically for 3 quarters, the Texans were able to take both of those players pretty much out of the game, and nobody else stepped up. That's been the big problem with this Patriots offense for the last, call it, 4 or 5 weeks since these issues really started kind of becoming apparent once the Patriots started playing quality competition. There's no secondary receiving talent, or I don't. That's the wrong way to say it. There's no secondary receiving performance at the moment. You'd probably say that Jakobi Meyers is the third most productive guy behind those 2 big guns at the moment, and it's clear that he still has a lot of development to do, which is expected. I think Jakobi Meyers is maybe catching too much heat from some people.
Oh my God, yeah.
Right
He's
now,
been
because
great.
he's actually been pretty good these last 2 games. He's had some very clear moments where he was not on the same page as Tom Brady. The evident one was the one where Tom Brady threw it about 10, 15 yards over his head because he thought that Meyers was going to turn up rather than kind of cut his route short. There was another one that ended up in a pass breakup in the end zone where he probably should have taken a little bit of a tighter angle back to the pylon. I believe it was either Dan Orlovsky or Brian Baldinger did a really good breakdown of that play on Twitter. So there's still moments where he's not kind of perfect, but you expect that from an undrafted receiver who's in his first season.
Right.
The fact that that imperfect level of Jakobi Meyers play is the best receiver play that the Patriots are getting outside of Julian Edelman is a problem. I mean, Philip Dorsett has really regressed this season.
Yeah.
I know he's been dealing with some injuries. He suffered I can't remember what his initial injury was, a knee injury maybe during that Redskins game.
Right, yeah.
Then he had the concussion a couple games ago. But one of my main takeaways from looking at this final box score is something that's just built up, that Philip Dorsett hasn't been a reliable receiver for the Patriots basically since the first couple of weeks of the season.
Right.
He caught 13 of his first 14 catches this season, which continued the streak he had last year. 26 consecutive regular season targets resulted in a catch. Since week 4, 44.1% catch rate, which among players with at least 30 targets or wide receivers with at least 30 targets, tied for last in the NFL with Ted Ginn, a guy I ill-advisedly drafted on my Dynasty League fantasy team last year, and I will tell you that is not a good player to want to be compared to at the moment. So that's been a big problem. Mohamed Sanu's still working through some stuff. I think he's clearly limited by that ankle injury he had a couple weeks ago, which you would think that he'll be a little bit more productive once he gets fully healthy, like he was in that Baltimore game. But yeah, long story short, the Patriots need these secondary players to step up.
Yeah, the Dorsett thing has been really interesting. He does have, he's having the best statistical season of his Patriots career, but that's really a pretty low bar to be setting since his previous career high last year was 290 receiving yards with 3 touchdowns. He's got 347 yards with 5 touchdowns this season, but he really is not stepping up. And I think that, he really is just best utilized as a number 3 or 4 receiver. And right now he's playing as that number 2 in the Patriots offense. And Jacoby Myers has been able to be that number 3, and he's been more productive than Philip Dorsett. Myers is currently 4th on the team with 299 receiving yards. That's only 48 yards behind Philip Dorsett, and he's played considerably fewer snaps this season. So Myers is trending in the right direction. Dorsett is kind of trending in the wrong direction. And you mentioned it. Sanu, I know he was fighting through the ankle injury, but you almost wonder, why are you putting him out there when he can only play 19 offensive snaps? And you're putting him back there for punt returns.
That's what I was just going to say.
And those two things don't match up to me, is that you're limiting him on offense because he's got an ankle injury, but then you're also putting him back there for punt returns, which is how he initially injured that ankle. And it's not like he's just back there fair catching the things. I don't know. I would want him to sit out and get as healthy as possible so that he's effective when he's back in there, rather than having this kind of half-healthy guy who's not really contributing all that much in the offense, which is what we've seen really for the past 2 games from him. He had that massive game against the Ravens, but hasn't really done a whole lot since then in the Patriots offense. The one guy that we failed to mention, who I think we all expected to provide a boost to the Patriots offense, and now expectations are significantly lower, is Nikhil Harry, who has 4 catches on 9 targets for 28 yards. That's only a 44.4% catch rate. His lone target came on a Tom Brady interception when he really didn't do a good enough job, boxing out Texans cornerback Bradley Roby. He probably also could have cut his route a little, shorter to actually get to that ball. And that was the only target that Harry received in that game. And his offensive snaps significantly declined after that target as well. So I think moving forward, the big question is, how much is Nikhil Harry even going to be seeing the field with guys like Edelman and Dorsett and Sanu and even Jacoby Myers significantly in front of him on the Patriots depth chart? Because Jacoby Myers played 60 snaps. I think Harry played 19, 20?
22.
22 snaps.
12 before the interception.
Which happened in the second quarter?
First quarter.
First quarter. Yeah. So 12 snaps in the first quarter, 10 after that. So I don't know. I mean, I guess the ultimate question, really what this comes down to, is can this Patriots offense be fixed? And the hope is that once Sanu comes back, he will provide a boost. But I'm not sure if it's significant enough to get this Patriots offense even back to the levels that we were seeing it playing at early in the season.
Yeah, I mean, the thing, going back to Harry for a second, this is sort of what I expected from Nikhil Harry when he came back. I mean, I know we talked about it a lot when he was sort of nearing the end of that stint on injured reserve. I didn't expect him to come in and be a guy who was going to get you 6-7 catches a game. No. I thought he was going to be a guy that they would sort of work in slowly, because we've seen so often with these rookie receivers that if they're productive at all as rookies, it usually comes later in the year after they have some snaps under their belt and some passes from Tom Brady under their belt. I am surprised they're not using Harry a little bit more in the red zone, because the play against the Cowboys was exactly how I envisioned them using him. Have him as the kind of big guy outside, one-on-one coverage, throw back shoulder, let him do his contested catch thing and jump over a defender. And he did it perfectly on that play. We haven't seen him catch a ball since then. He only has one catch over his last 2 games, and they haven't...
Yeah, that was 1 catch on 4 targets.
One catch on 4 targets, then had 0 catches on 1 target in this past game, and we haven't seen him, even though the Patriots did get down in the red zone on those last 3 touchdown drives, they didn't use him in that situation at all. He actually didn't play a single snap on any of those touchdown drives. Right. So maybe they just don't really feel that he's ready. They don't... I mean, obviously the interception was not a good play by Nikhil Harry. He has about 3 or 4 inches and 30 pounds on Bradley Roby. You cannot let a smaller cornerback just cross your face and run straight for the ball like that. Also, the fact that he basically fell down as the ball was getting there. He seems to have some issues with things like that. He's still kind of working out some of the kinks, which some of it can be attributed to him just not playing football for so long and still getting his feet under him in this offense. But on the same token, he is a first-round draft pick, and you kind of expect a little bit more from him.
Yeah, for sure. It has been a bit of a disappointment there for Nikhil Harry, and yeah, I don't know. I really do wonder, like, is this a situation where if he's only playing 10 snaps over the final 3 quarters of the game, is he even going to be active against the Chiefs this weekend? So that's something to kind of look out for. Let's talk about the defense a little bit because they also did struggle a bit against the Texans. They only allowed, what was it? They allowed less than 300 total yards. But anytime the Texans got near the red zone, the Patriots were allowing touchdowns, which, with the way that their offense is playing right now, is not a good way to win a game. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if this was just kind of an aberration, and if the Patriots defense will round back into form this week against the Kansas City Chiefs, who are an even bigger test on offense, or if the Patriots defense is kind of returning back to the mean a little bit, because I will say that Patriots defense was phenomenal through the first half of the season, even last week against the Cowboys and everything. But a lot of balls were bouncing their way, and
turnover luck.
There was a lot of turnover luck, and eventually, that turnover luck flips the other way, and suddenly guys are the offense is picking up fumbles, and a tipped pass doesn't bounce into a defender's arms. So I don't know, without all of those turnovers and without a lot of that turnover luck, it will be a little bit more difficult for the Patriots defense to put up the same similar performances that they had earlier in the season. Perhaps the turnover luck will flip back their way, but that has been one thing I've noticed over the last few weeks, is that a lot of those plays the Patriots made in the past, they haven't been making, and I don't think it's any fault of their own. It's just that the ball's literally not bouncing their way.
One thing I'm really going to be watching in this Chiefs game is the play of the Patriots linebackers, especially those top 3 with Dante Hightower, Kyle Van Noy, Jamie Collins. I thought that group as a whole had a really excellent stretch for 2 games with the Eagles game and the Cowboys game after kind of struggling against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. They clearly struggled in pass coverage in this game. Both the Texans' first 2 touchdowns, one of them came against Kyle Van Noy, one of them appeared to come against Dante Hightower. All 3 of those players missed time with the illness last week with the flu bug. Jamie Collins played his lowest snap count of the entire season. Kyle Van Noy played his lowest snap count since week 2, I believe. I know all of the players have said, that's not an excuse. We were all ready to play, blah, blah, blah. Kyle Van Noy showed up to the game in like a surgical mask, one of those anti-germ masks, and maybe Van Noy was just kind of playing around. It seems like something that he would do. But the fact that it was pretty clear these guys weren't at 100%. I mean, I asked DeMarcus Cousins, the Patriots outside linebackers coach. Covington. What did I say?
Cousins.
DeMarcus Cousins. I did not talk to DeMarcus Cousins. DeMarcus Covington. I asked him whether this flu bug hadn't had an effect on this team, and basically he gave the answer. It's like, everybody has to be ready to play. But he did say these guys are fighting through a lot. Like, these are guys that you basically can't keep off the field if they want to be on the field. So it was pretty clear that these guys were fighting through something and weren't at 100%. That really hurt them because a lot of Deshaun Watson's success through the air came on passes, 2 tight ends and 2 running backs. And if you would assume that group is now fully healthy going into this week after kind of having a full weekend and then another full week to heal up. Do they respond against the Chiefs and look more like the team that we saw 2 weeks ago against the Cowboys and for most of this season, or do some of those same struggles kind of continue? Because the Chiefs do have a lot of running backs and especially a very good tight end who are capable of catching the ball.
Yeah, I will mention that Hightower and Van Noy both did have sacks, but like you said, they did struggle more.
They didn't play
game.
Poorly, but there were a few issues out there.
And as far as Van Noy wearing the surgical mask, after the game, Philip Dorsett had one too. So it's not like Kyle Van Noy bought a surgical mask simply because he thought it would be funny to wear on the field. Like, other guys had them, and unless the entire team was kind of trolling, Dorsett is usually, very good with the media, and he basically said, you guys don't want to be near me right now. And maybe he was using that as an excuse to not talk to reporters, but that's not really like him. So it did seem like they were taking extreme precautions. They even took 2 different planes to Houston because of all the players who were sick before the game. So clearly this wasn't all trolling. They aren't going to, gas up a plane and fly 2 different planes to Houston if this is no big deal. So yeah, as you mentioned, that's the hope, is that those guys would get back up to full speed and play better this week against the Kansas City Chiefs. And that does bring us into this week's game against Kansas City, where the Patriots do definitely have to figure out how to cover Travis Kelce. And in the past, even 2 years ago, even last year probably, I would have said, all right, yeah, just throw Patrick Chung on him. And he does a great job against tight ends. Chung's been dealing with a lot of injuries this season, and he has not been as effective nor as involved, I would say, at covering top-tier players. This year's Patrick Chung isn't the kind of guy that the Patriots would throw on T.Y. Hilton, for instance, which is something that he actually did against the Colts a few years back. I think that the way to cover Travis Kelce is to put Stephon Gilmore on him, because quite frankly, no offense to Sammy Watkins, but I feel like it's kind of wasting Stephon Gilmore's talents to put him on someone like Sammy Watkins. And granted, the Patriots did kind of mix coverages against the Eagles. He was seeing, who was he covering in that game? He was covering
a little bit of Jordan Matthews, a little bit of Aguilar. They mixed some things up a lot.
And then it was Zach Ertz near the end of that game.
It was basically Zach Ertz on every third down in that game.
Right. So. Kelce is a similar player to Ertz, probably even better. And Gilmore did a really good job against Ertz at the end of the AFC Championship game last year. So, I feel like, I wrote about this today, I feel like you probably could put Gilmore on Kelce and then have J.C. Jackson cover Sammy Watkins. That wasn't a great matchup in last year's AFC Championship game, but I think that J.C. Jackson has improved since that point. And then you do what the Patriots did in the AFC Championship game, where you had Jonathan Jones and Devin McCourty on Tyreke Hill, and then have either Jason McCourty or someone else cover that number 3 wide receiver in the Chiefs offense, who would be Demarcus Robinson. And that depends on whether McCourty is good to go. He's missed the last 2 games with a groin injury. If it's not him, it would be Joejuan Williams or someone else taking on that guy. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know if the Patriots, to me, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And it wasn't broke with the way the Patriots were covering Tyreke Hill in their last game against the Chiefs. So for me, I wouldn't fix that. I wouldn't change that. I wouldn't put Stephon Gilmore on Tyreke Hill just because of how effective they were against Tyreke Hill last game. I don't think there's a need to get cute in this game and just do exactly what you did last time. But at the same time, I can see why the Patriots might want to say, all right, well, that worked last time, but now the Chiefs are expecting it, so now we have to switch things up a little bit. But that's the way that I would probably do all this. Then you just have Chung and Devin McCourty and Chung and maybe Terrence Brooks and the linebackers covering the running backs. But for me, I would put a lot of defensive backs on the field in this game.
I agree. I think the way that they covered Tyreke Hill in last year's AFC Championship game is probably the best option that they have. Maybe they'll think that because they've done it before, maybe Kansas City will expect it and they'll throw some wrinkle out there. But I do think that is their best avenue, especially with the way that Tyreke Hill performed in the 2 previous games against the Patriots, where he basically had like 160 yards a game and 4 touchdowns or whatever it was. Only caught 1 pass against the Patriots in the AFC Championship game, and that's when Keon Crossan was in the game instead of Jonathan Jones. I think that's the best way of handling that situation. And then I agree with you that putting Stephon Gilmore on Travis Kelce is probably the best use of his talents as well, if only because, as you mentioned, there's not an obvious other player that you can stick on Travis Kelce. And Stephon Gilmore did pretty well against Travis Kelce in the game last year. It was pretty hilarious talking to him after the game. He said it was easy because Travis Kelce is slow, which was classic post-game Gilmore. Did a good job against Zach Ertz earlier this year, too.
And he said something similar about Ertz after that game, too, is that he said that he had to adjust his coverage to play slower and basically to let the tight end, he allows the tight end to pass him because he knows that he can catch back up. He doesn't want to play too tight because that's when tight ends can use their strength to push off against him. So he seems to have this formula to cover tight ends that no one else seems to have, and he really seems to excel at doing it. So since he is so good and since he's done so well in 2 games, I don't know. I like the idea of doing it again.
No, I agree. Yeah, I think having Jason McCourty back in this game, if he is indeed back, might be an important little underrated wrinkle. Just Definitely. Because this isn't the Eagles who have one really good tight end, but basically nothing in the receiving core. This is one of the better receiving cores in the NFL, even if you don't include Travis Kelce in that. Right. I think McCole Hardman could be an X factor in this game, especially if the Patriots are a little depleted in the cornerback group, just because he does have so much speed. He is such a kind of dynamic player. He's not on Tyreke Hill's level, but he's a similar type of athleticism out there. And if the Patriots are in any way limited back there, that might cause a couple of problems. I think in this game it was really interesting going back through the two games that the Patriots and the Chiefs played last season, which were both classics, two of the best games that we've seen in a while. The Patriots absolutely shut down the Chiefs in the first half in both of those games. In the regular season game, the Chiefs scored 9 points in the first half. In the playoff game, the Chiefs didn't score any points in the first half. Then they ended up with 40 points and 31 points. So they definitely figured out something around halftime that let their offense kind of open things up a little bit. Maybe that's just a case of this team is so good that you're not going to be able to shut them down for extended periods of time. But that's definitely going to be something to watch for in this game. It's going to be a halftime adjustment off between Bill Belichick and Andy Reid, who Belichick clearly has a lot of respect for as an offensive game planner and play caller. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, you would think the Chiefs would just say, like, all right, let's do in the first half what we were doing in the second half before. But sometimes I think it does take a while to see what the Patriots are actually throwing at them to figure out how to adjust to that and how to start putting up some points. But I don't know. This is definitely going to be a very good game this week between the Chiefs and the Patriots. And it's sort of a must-win game for the Patriots because they really don't want to lose whatever footing they have on that number 1 seed. And with the Bills having such a good record already at 9-3, they don't want to, lose any ground in the AFC East as well. So I really look at the final 4 games of the Patriots as all sort of must-win games. And while the Chiefs are not at the same level as they were last season, they do still have the potential to get on the same level as they were last season.
No, that's what I was just going to mention. This game doesn't have the level of hype, I guess, as we thought it would at the beginning of the season, just because we kind of assumed that this would be a game between two teams that were 11-1, 10-2 playing off against each other. As you mentioned, the Chiefs still are a very good team, but before they really laid the smackdown on the Raiders this past weekend, they had lost 4 of their previous 7 games, and some of those games were while Patrick Mahomes was out with an injury. But even after he came back, it still took him a little while to sort of build back up to where they want to be. They almost lost to the Chargers in Mexico. They probably should have lost that game if Phillip Rivers didn't throw 4 interceptions, including a really bad one on that last possession. But then they had their bye week and they came out and they kicked the crap out of the Raiders. So maybe they're back to where they were at the beginning of the year and at last year. This is a team that has beaten the Ravens this year, one of the only 2 teams to beat the Ravens. So obviously a lot of talent. The worry with them is always the defense, which the Patriots have been able to exploit in these last couple of years. But
and who knows if they'll be able to do that this year.
Yeah, that's going to be a very very interesting matchup. Do they have the personnel to hang 40 points on this Chiefs team the way that they've been able to in the last couple of years?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I mean, you look at the Chiefs' schedule. They're 500 over the last 8 games of the season. They started the season 4-0, but they've been 500 since that point. They have won the last 2 games, and that was against the Chargers and Raiders.
All losses, pretty quality losses. I mean, they lost to the Colts, they lost to the Texans, Packers, and the Titans, who are playing very good football right now. So it's not like they're going out here and losing to terrible teams, but this is still a team that we expected to be better than 8-4 coming into this game.
Definitely. All right, let's quickly play America's favorite game, where we guess where a player that we have not heard of went to college. That is the full name of the segment, by the way. It's not just America's favorite game. So I am going to throw out Charvarius Ward. Cornerback, number 35 in your rosters, number 1 in your hearts.
He went to Ohio.
Charvarius Ward went to Iowa State, I'm going to say. Middle Tennessee State University. Who was the Charkandrick West? So they had a Charkandrick West, now they've got a Charvarius Ward. Do you have one you want to throw out there?
Do you know where Tano Passanwa went?
Yes, I do. He went to Vanderbilt.
I thought he went to Villanova.
Oh, he went to Villanova. You're right. Damn it. I always get those wrong. Yes, he did want to go to Villanova. Do you know where's one that I know? Do you know where Juan Thornhill went?
Virginia.
Yes, he did.
You know where Anthony Sherman went?
Oh, he went to UConn.
He did.
And he also went to North Attleboro High School.
Yep. My high school played against him in high school. I'd say he is the single most intimidating person I've ever come across on an athletic field. Actually, I ran against him in track too.
Really?
I think he was 2 years older than me, or 1 year.
Yeah.
I think 1 year ahead of me. I went to King Philip. He went to North Attleboro. And I was Hockomock Pride. I was racing him in the 50 meters at the Franklin indoor track, and I was right next to him. I probably weighed about 155 pounds, and he was in the lane next to me, and he was so big and so muscular that he stretched over. I had to lean to my left to get out of the way of his biceps. I remember he was number 911 was his number on his track bib, and he probably beat me by 2.5 seconds in the 50. It was
extremely
impressive. It was humbling. Yeah. He's a very, very talented guy. One of the better fullbacks in the NFL now.
Definitely. One last one. Do you know where Byron Pringle went?
Wyoming?
I think he went to Kansas State. He did.
Oh, there we go. Successful day for us.
Yes, it is. That will do it for this week's NESN Patriots podcast. You can keep it on NESN.com for all of your Patriots coverage. Follow me on Twitter at Doug Kyed. Follow Zach on Twitter at Zack Cox NESN at 2 o'clock on Sunday. We will be live on Facebook with Matt Chatham for the pregame chat. That will be live from the Gillette Stadium field. And I don't know what the weather's going to be like on Sunday. I think it's going to be real cold.
Yeah, no snow in the forecast at the moment.
36, low 31. So as far as December Foxborough temperatures go, that's pretty mild. But most importantly, no precipitation, because then we can keep doing it on the field. But keep it on NESN.com for all of your Patriots coverage.